Hello everybody, welcome to the video where I show you how to make butter out of milk cream or Jersey cow cream. So the two methods you see here are with the food processor and the mason jar. This video does not cover the churn. Okay, sorry I don't have like any kind of like fancy studio or recording equipment, y'all, but deal with it. I'm sick, we've had the flu, so I just wanted to make this video for you guys to kind of cover some bases on how you can do your own butter. It's super simple, super easy. But first, I want to talk about, hold on, Cohen, okay? I want to talk about types of milk and types of pasteurization and homogenization real quick, because that is very, very, very important. You may care, you may not care. You're welcome to skip past this part if you want to, and just go straight to the butter making. But I'm going to cover it anyway because I know it's probably in the back of some of y'all's mind. We're like, oh wait, how is this possible? This is more of like the science, chemistry related part to butter and all things milk. Cohen, get out of my clothes basket. Okay, so most of you know milk comes from a cow. Yeah, it does. It might be kind of gross, but it does. It comes from a little milk teat. And dairy cows can produce up to 12 gallons of milk per day. Depends on the cow, depends on the breed of cow, depends on how long she's been lactating, depends on how old the cow is. So every batch of milk that a cow produces has what's called milk fat in it. And I don't know, there's no real exact science on how much milk fat per batch you get. That's not possible because it varies so much on so many variety of factors like I just mentioned, including the cow's diet. So it's just a thing. So it's kind of a hit or miss on how much milk fat you're going to get out of a batch. Anyway, what you will do if you're getting your milk from like a Jersey cow, you'll have to scrape the cream off the top, or the milk fat. The cream contains the milk fat, which is the part of the milk in total that contains all the proteins, the vitamins, and nutrients that your body needs. The whole reason we consume milk in the first place. So you know that there are several different types of milk. So you know that there is whole milk, 2% milk, 1% milk, and skim milk. Well, mostly the composition of milk is it's water and then it's the milk fat, right? So you have the cow drinks the water, makes the milk, just like human beings do. Whole milk. A lot of people are not crazy about the taste of whole milk. Whole milk only has 3.25% of milk fat to, I think, 96% water. So you're not really getting a whole heck of a lot of the milk fat, the good stuff with the milk, unless you drink like multiple glasses of the milk, even with whole milk. And then you take it down to 2%, that's like 98% milk. I mean, y'all, I'm not a mathematician and I have a bleeding headache, so you just track in that skim milk has no milk fat. So I'm sorry for you guys out there that like to drink skim milk. That's just the facts. Fact check if you want, but skim milk has no milk fat in it. It literally has had all the milk fat skimmed completely out of it. So it's still technically milk, but it's mostly water, watered down milk. Sorry if that offends you. It is what it is. Still good for you, but it just does not have a heck of a lot of nutrients and stuff, which is why you have to drink so much more. And then there's obviously then your 2% and your whole milk. But anyway, what has to be done to the milk in order for it to be able to hit the shelf or be sold by USD regulation is that it has to be pasteurized, period. Pasteurization is not necessarily harmful to you, to me, to the milk, or none of that. Pasteurization is just when they boil the milk to kill out any bacteria. There's no telling. I mean, it could have come from the cow's teat, could have come from anything. Just like you and me, we all have a specific amount of normal, healthy bacteria and bad bacteria that may be good for us, but not necessarily good for somebody else. Same thing with cows and animals and stuff like that. So, they pasteurize the milk first, which they just boil the mess out of it, and then they cool it off. When they do this, it still has all that milk fat in there. Some of it boils off, but you still have quite a bit. But what happens is it mixes back up in with the milk. So you have to wait for the cream to separate and everything. So if you buy Jersey cow milk or any kind of cow milk, you'll have to scrape it off the top because it's been pasteurized and so on and so forth. You won't really find it in store-bought milk because it's been what they called homogenized. And a lot of people are really like kind of afraid of the big word homogenized, but homogenization just means that it's undergone a different process. Some of the stuff has, I'm trying to think of what it was in the past, but you can look up homogenization if you want to. A lot of people don't like their milk homogenized because it does take out so much else of the milk. They separate the, help me with this. Homogenization is just where they separate the milk fat from the milk. And they take that milk fat and then they redistribute it elsewhere. So homogenized milk does not contain nearly as much, because they've separated out and made skim milk, they separated out and made 2% milk, they've made whole milk, and they've just added it back to the milk. That's homogenization. And that's kind of scary when you think about the process that your milk undergoes, because not only the cow was milked, you don't know the life the cow's had, what it's eaten, its lifespan, yada yada. You don't know what hormones have given, because I just recently learned this. I can't recall the exact hormone that a cow's injected with, but a lot of dairy farmers get really, really insulted when you ask, because apparently it's not harmful to the cow at all, but who really wants an additional hormone added into their cow milk? You got to think about this. It's just, I don't need any extra hormones. I'm hormonal enough. But they give the cow an additional hormone booster shot so that they lactate longer. And a lot of these mass production dairy farms, they give it to them. So a lot of the stuff that's on the shelf has been given these cow hormones and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. But anyway, it makes the cow lactate longer, and you don't end up with as much milk fat and all that stuff. But anyway, I digress. Homogenized milk just means that they have separated out the milk fat and utilized it elsewhere, and then put it back into the milk so it makes your percentages of milk. Most store-bought milk is homogenized because they have to regulate how much percentage of milk is in, your gallon. So if you buy whole milk, it's definitely been homogenized because they have to have a controlled amount of milk fat in each gallon of milk. They have to have a controlled amount of 3.25% milk fat per gallon. So it's definitely been homogenized. And when I checked my gallon of milk, the last store-bought gallon of milk that I had, it didn't say anywhere on there. But it's kind of scary to think that the particular level of milk fat has been controlled. Like the amount of nutrients has been controlled so much with me drinking a glass of milk. Anyway, so once they have taken the milk fat off, milk fat can be turned into a variety of different things, which is the cool part and how we get to make the butter. So that milk fat, like I said, is just the cream off the top of the milk that will separate out naturally. So when they homogenize it, and for store-bought milk, they use a chemical process. They put it in a big centrifuge and spin it around, yada yada, to separate it out. If you can homogenize it naturally, it will do it on its own. So you can literally let a glass of milk sit on a counter, get room temperature, all of that will happen on its own. The cream will literally just, it's heavier, so it will float to the top of the glass, and you just scoop it off. All right. And that's kindly what I've done when I've made my Jersey cow milk with my Jersey cow milk and the butter and buttermilk that I've got. So to get back to the butter making process, I know I keep jumping around because there's a lot of information and I'm sure some of you want to know. But anyway, so once you have acquired your cream, like I said earlier, you can buy the cream at the store if you would like to, if it's easier for you. The heavy whipping cream is just literally the cream, and it has been ultra pasteurized because it has a longer shelf life. Ultra pasteurization is when they just repasteurize it. They boil it again and flash cool it again. It just goes back through the pasteurization process. Unfortunately, that means that a lot of the good stuff has been killed out of it again, just so that it can sit on the shelf longer. But you make your choices. I know dairy cow milk is not easily acceptable. It is not easily accessible. So I did buy Jersey cow milk, and then I've messed around with some store-bought whipping cream, yada yada. I've tried it both ways. The Jersey cow milk, so much mo better. Over the counter, like I say over the counter like it's a bad thing. Store-bought whipped cream or cream, heavy cream, does the same thing. It just doesn't have like that deep, like rich tone that you can tell the difference with what I'm talking about. If you go buy generic butter and then go and buy like a Land O'Lakes butter, you can immediately kindly taste the difference between the two. And it's the same like with the difference between store-bought butter and then when you go and you make your own. Like you can definitely tell like the taste is so much different. So it's your preference still, like I said. This is just the crazily cost effective. So even with your store-bought cream, you're gonna have a better experience. But anyway, that is the science behind it and all that. So this next segment I will cover, I'm not gonna cover all three of the methods. I'll probably just cover one because it's my favorite. But the three methods that are out there that I'm aware of is you can take the cream and you can put it in a food processor or maybe even a blender, but I would recommend a food processor over a blender. And you would just pour as much or as little of the cream into the food processor as you want, and you would turn it on to like a low setting, high setting. It really depends on how quickly you want to make this butter. The higher you turn it, the quicker it's gonna go. The slower, obviously, the longer it's gonna take. Duh. But I just kind of have to say that so y'all aren't gonna be like, oh my god, this takes forever. Putting it in the food processor takes roughly 15 to 20 minutes. So you just literally let it go, walk away from it if you want to, and it'll do its thing. The buttermilk will separate from the butter. All the butter in my food processor went like all the way to the top. So I had to scrape all the butter off the top, and that was kind of tricky with my spatula because you know how food processors are shaped. That, and it was loud. It was very loud, and I had to put something on top of my food processor to keep it from splatting everywhere because it was wobbling so much. So I just didn't like that method. I mean, you can try it and see if you like it, but like I said, the food processor was loud. It was wobbling all over my counter, and I had a big mess to clean up from like all the splatters. The second method, which is my favorite method so far, is with a mason jar, and I'll show you everything about that here in just a second. And then the third and final method is if you want to get like really serious into butter making. I bought my 1 gallon butter churn for I think $52. It's a giant like stoneware one. It came from an Amish serving place. They make things for the Amish. It's got a wooden, I'll show you later as well. And you just churn it, like it's a whole process. But the only downfall to that particular method is that if you want, it's for making large batches of butter. I would rather make smaller batches of butter for better freshness, because I mean, yeah, we go through a lot of butter, but I'd rather have my butter be more fresh. So I make a bunch of small batches all through the week. Because this butter does not have all the chemicals and all the processing as store-bought butter does, so it does not last nearly as long as the butter that you would buy on the shelf. Just to kind of put that out there, it does not. It might last a week. You can freeze it, but it's not gonna last in the refrigerator nearly as long. I don't really have a problem with that, because like I said, I'm Southern. I like butter. Use butter for absolutely everything. So I usually run completely out within like a day or so, and then I'll just shake it up, make up another batch, done. You know, small batches all throughout the week. But if you want to make large batches of butter, if you're into that kind of thing and you just want to freeze it, get a butter churn. The whole concept is that the butter, the buttermilk, all that, the cream has to be agitated. It has to just be shaken. It has to be vibrated, whatever. It has to be agitated to the point that the butter fats separate the fats part. The butter is just the fatty part, the fat globules. That. It's just the fat particles from the milk. That's why it's like so unhealthy. But yeah, that's all that butter is. It's the fat particles of the milk. So fat is heavy, and you just have to shake it out. So that's all you really do. You'll see later in this video where I took a small batch of cream, just for your example, to show you the process of how to rinse it. But I'm gonna stop talking and get to making some butter. All right, so now it's time to make some butter, and I got my little sweet helper here. It doesn't need that fussy, Damon Henry. And I've got a jar. This is a, I think it's a, yeah, this is a pint. Yeah, I think this is a quart. It's just got a lid, but you could use any jar that has a lid. So we're gonna put the cream in this, and this is heavy whipping cream, heavy cream, and we talked about this earlier. Brand new. This is a pint, and I let it sit out at room temperature because that is what makes the best. You'll be able to get it with cold cream too, but it just take a lot longer to separate. Alright, so we're gonna see how much butter we can get out of this. Okay, we're gonna see how much butter we can get out of this. Alright, you ready? So we're only gonna do like a cup at a time, so we don't, look at all that cream. That's gonna be butter here in a minute.
Don't pour too much in there.
Yeah, I don't want to pour too much in there. Alright. So we got a cup, and then we'll do another batch in a minute. You ready? Mm-hmm. You want to shake it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. To be continued. Here, show them that you're shaking it. Shake it, shake it. Keep shaking it. We'll be back. Alright, so we have shaken this, and we have shooken it so much that we've got butter. And what will happen is it will get super, super, super thick while you're shaking it. And then next thing you know, you got butter. So now, what we got to do, after we just shook the mess out of this, kind of like a shake weight, we are going to pour the buttermilk that's separated from it, because as we talked about before, butter is just the fatty part of the milk. So what's left is buttermilk. So we pour the buttermilk off. It's all clumped together. Whoop. Okay, and now butter.
That's so loud.
Yeah, I accidentally hit it, didn't I?
Yeah.
Alright, so check it out. So that was with 1 cup of cream. And now we're going to do another cup of cream. We're going to try and see how much butter we can get out of this whole thing here. But you have seen the process of all we're doing is just putting our, you like that butter? Does it taste good? I'm making a mess. Putting our cream in here, and we're doing these small batches because, like I said, the food processor was messy. We'll go ahead and pour a little bit more. It was messy and it was loud. This doesn't take as long as the food processor. It feels like it does because you're doing it by hand, but we found this method from a book we got. So now we're just gonna do the second batch, and then we're gonna do the washing process of our butter. Enjoy. This is the most complicated part of the butter. So I've drained off all of the buttermilk from my butter that's clumped together. Now you have to wash it, which is weird, but it separates out the rest of the buttermilk. And I'm just using like a small bit here to kind of show. So there's my butter in the bowl, and you'll have to use the background noise. It is what it is. So just gonna take a little bit of cold water, the colder the better, and you're just gonna pour it in there, and you're just gonna like squish it around. Now the first rinse is going to be the most difficult because you're literally squishing out the remainder of your buttermilk, but you want to just like squish it around. And this is why I chose to do this with like a smaller little batch of butter, to kind of show you. Alright, so that's good enough. You just kind of like want to swish it around a little bit. So then you're just gonna, you can use this buttermilk if you still want, if you want to.
I gotta say,
Hey, could you not be so loud? I'm making a video in here.
I gotta say that.
Alright, so that's the first rinse, and the consistency of your butter is going to start firming up with every rinse that you do. It's going to get more and more firm. I like to do at least 3 rinses. I don't think I've done more than 3. So you're going to go in for your second rinse, and obviously the bigger your batch of butter, the more water you're going to have to use. So seriously, this is the hardest part, most difficult part of your butter. So you can kindly see that the more times you rinse, the less cloudy your butter is going to be. So this is the second rinse, and you can see how cloudy it was from the first rinse. And I'm not going to use that because I just got a whole bunch of buttermilk from the last couple batches I made. Alright, and it smells so good, you guys. Okay, so that's good and mixed up. I'm going to, and I can almost see the bottom of my bowl. pull it out. All right, and I'm gonna go one more time, and you can see the consistency of this butter is really starting to firm together, be firm up. I'm gonna do one more rinse. Oop, I got some butter trying to escape my bowl. All right, like I said, this is seriously the most difficult part. Butter, butter, no shame. I'm just gonna keep on doing that same method, and this looks pretty good. My butter is sticking together pretty good, and that water is basically about as clear as it's gonna be. I don't know if I can't turn the bowl, but you can see that my water over here is basically clear, and I got my butter over here. So I'd say this is pretty well rinsed through with all of the the buttermilk is completely out. So now I'm gonna drain this off one last time. That was pretty clear. So like I said, you can reuse this and pour it into your buttermilk. It may make it watered down, which is why I really don't use this part. So it's up to you on how concentrated you like your buttermilk, I guess. So like I said, I just used a small batch of butter for an example to make it easier to work with and show you guys. Obviously the bigger batch, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to rinse because you're gonna have more butter to rinse. But it's at this point, if you want to add things to your butter. So if you want to make your butter salted, you would just sprinkle some salt in there. Sea salt, whatever kind of salt you like to use. Sprinkle salt in there if you want your butter to be salted. I don't really use salted butter, but this is your end product. And I'm just going to, this tastes so good. Got my little butter dish, and you can see the butter I made before. And I will get back to you on how much you can yield from a pint and so on, because it's different for however much butter you want. But yeah, that's butter, y'all. If you have a butter container, butter dish, whatever you want to do, you can put it on a some wax paper or whatever you want and put it into a fancy shape or whatnot. I just throw it in the butter dish and stick it in the refrigerator, and it solidifies and it's delicious. So yeah, that's the most difficult process. 3 cups cream equals this many ounces butter.